There seems to be something missing in our forward and backlist dialog boxes. I know the favicon images. We can add those using a RecyclerView. Welcome to Mobile Application Tutorials. My name's Nigel. Okay, so now I'm going to introduce you to using a RecyclerView using the Kotlin programming language. Okay, so we'll jump straight into it. Though if you do want to just start this particular tutorial from this episode, you notice we have a bunch of episodes. If you do want to skip those and just jump to straight into implementing a RecyclerView using the Kotlin language, you can get the code from here. You will need to sign up to my website. There'll be a link in the description as well as a card, but we do provide the information, or if you look at this video as well, on how to get the git tag to get the code to start this tutorial. Or if you're new to Android or GitHub, there's a video here of how to actually get the code using Android Studio. Anyway, we'll make a start now. Okay, so we'll jump across to our Android Studio. Here we are here. And the first thing I want to do is to create a layout file just to hold our favicon and our text. So we'll go into Layouts. New layout resource file, select that. Okay, and this layout file I've just called web item history. Select OK. This is going to, don't want to add it just to GitHub yet. I'm just going to go into the text tab here and just visually tidy this up a little bit more. I do like it to be in the vertical format. Okay, we're going to have to check these layout widths and heights first of all, because I did make a mistake and it took a while to debug. So the width is fine for the match parent, but the height we want to wrap the content. And I'm going to add a image view first to represent the favicon. And the width, I'm just going to set that to 0 display pixels. The reason for that is because we're going to set that as a percentage using the layout weight, and the height will be wrap content. And so we will set the layout weight for that now. And wait for the bubble to disappear on my Android Studio. Now we'll set an Android ID. I'll set this to favicon. Some easy name I can remember, and just let me check. And we'll just have to set one more thing here, Android adjust view and bounds to true. Basically this is just going to retain the aspect ratio of our image. Okay, now let's create a text view underneath that. While we're here, I shouldn't have said underneath it, I should have said next to it, because this is going to be a linear layout. It's going to be in the horizontal format, so we need to change that as well. Okay, and we'll go to text view. And the layout width will be the same, 0 display pixels. We're going to set the ratio for that. And the height again will be wrap content. And we will need to set an ID for that, of course. And we'll call this title to represent the web page title. And we'll have to set the layout weight for that. I'm going to make this 0.85 just to take up the remainder of the display there. And I am going to set a layout gravity for center vertical, just to center our title text just in the middle of that view. Okay, these should be the only changes we need to make to our layout that's going to be loaded into the RecyclerViews. Okay, so the next step here is we want to create RecyclerView adapters. So the adapters are basically what match the content data, which is going to be our favicons and our titles. It matches those to these particular views here. So I'm going to create a couple of adapters just to keep things simple. One back adapter to show the back list and one forward adapter to show the forward list. So let's go into our package there and select new, Kotlin file class, make that a class, and I'll call the first one back list or back history adapter. First thing I want to do is I want to set up a constructor here just to pass a value. I can set value here in Kotlin, and I'm going to call it WebView because we're going to be actually passing a WebView in there so we can get to the functionality of the WebView to use in our adapter. So I'm just going to call this WebView, and it is going to be of the WebView type. And because I've set that value there, it's already been initialized and I have a value I can access inside this class. And I am going to want to extend the RecyclerView Adapter class here. So use the colon for that. If I can find my cursor. It's called RecyclerView Adapter here. Now we're going to pass in the type, which is we're going to be creating a ViewHolder class inside our class we've just created. So we call BackHolder. If I just get some more screen real estate here. So we call our BackHolder Back History Adapter, and it's going to have a class inside called ViewHolder. And let's put the closing braces there. Okay, so now we're going to populate our class with this ViewHolder, and we're going to implement the overridden functions from the RecyclerView Adapter. So I'm just going to press on a Mac Alt-Enter to create a class for that. There it is there. And I'll also override the functions that I want to implement in this class as well. So again, Alt-Enter, implement members, and I'm going to select all of these and select OK. Okay, so now it's just a matter of just populating all of these. Which one should I start with? So many to choose from. Ooh. Okay, well, so we'll do the get item count first. And with Kotlin, we can make things a little bit more simpler. We can just return the size of the get the size for that. And now we have our web view that we created in our constructor. We can just call web view. And I'm going to call my copy back forward list. And the current index for this, because this is the backlist, so we only want all the items behind back from the current index. So that's what we're going to set the size to the current index there. Okay, that's now been done. Let's go and work out our ViewHolder next. So our ViewHolder that we created there is going to extend the RecyclerView ViewHolder. So we call RecyclerView ViewHolder. And I just need to pass in some parameters here, which is going to be a view. So I'll call this item view. Uppercase view, colon, and it will be a view. And I'll just wait for the ID. It's going to take a while to pick that one up. So I'll just call the item view from inside the constructor for the view holder there. Has it come here now? Let's wait for that. This does take a little while for. So while we're waiting for that, just for the IDE just to pick up a view, which you'd think you'd be able to do straight away, we're going to jump across to which one we're going to. I'll just create a little space here. On create view holder, we'll implement that, and we can remove this question mark there. The view's finally there, and we can add that view now. So we can go back down to our view. I might edit this out or not, as the case may be. Okay, so now here we can create our items for our view holder, which do get passed through to the onBind view holder. So there's going to be two items. Quite simply, it's going to be the image view representing the favicon and a text representing the title. So we'll create one for the title first. We'll call it title equals, and from here we'll call our item view, which is a view, and we'll call title. And as you can see here, Kotlin's doing a nice little bit of magic, and it's pulling down the title view from the layout we created. Okay, we'll just do the same for the favicon as well, and we'll call it favicon. Call our item view and favicon. And there we have, we've populated the members of the view holder with the correct views that we want to use from our layout. Okay, now we'll jump across into our onCreate view holder. And the first thing, basically what I'm going to do here is we're just going to inflate our layout we created and then pass the view representing that layout into our view holder, which will have the actual contents to populate and the view holder itself. Okay, so I'll create a value here just to represent the layout inflator. You could all do this in one line, but just for the ease and explanation of the tutorial, I'm going to do it this way. And I'll call layout inflator. From we can get parent contents context. So we now have an object representing the layout inflator. Now I want to create a object representing the basically the layout that we created, which will be in a view format. So I'll call this is going to be the web history item, web history view, I think I'll call this. And we'll call our layout inflator, and here we call it inflate. Now we've got to pass in the resource called layout. That will give us a layout file. And here it is here, web history item. And next thing here, can I do an autocomplete? We'll pass in the parent for that, and we'll select false. We don't need to attach to the parent in this case. Okay, and finally, it's expecting where's my mouse gone? It's expecting a view holder to be returned back. So we create a view holder representing this object here, and pass in the view, which will be the web history view. That sounded like a whole bunch of gobbledygook to me, but if you just write return, and I've forgotten how to spell return, if you just write return, and we'll create our view holder and pass in the web history view like this. Okay, that's fine. That's there. So we've now created the view holder object with our views, all good to go. We've just got one more thing left to do, which is actually binding the view holder. So this will get called by the RecyclerView itself when it wants to generate another view for the recycler list. I'm just going to remove this question mark there and start implementing it. Okay, what I'm going to do here is to set up a variable representing the web view forward backlist. So if I just call value, we'll call this web history, web list, web history. You can call it whatever you like. Equals, I'll call our web view, and it's just a copy back forward list. Okay, this will just make the coding a little bit easier on the eyes. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is just to load the view holders. This is where we populate the view holders with data itself. We'll do the text first. So if I just call holder, which is from the parameter, title in this case, and text, we want to populate the text there. And we'll call our web history. And we're going to call get item at index, and we have an index pointer now, which is the position representing the location in the recycler view. So we can call that. And on the end, we will need to add title. And that should work for the title. Now we're going to do something very similar for the favicon. So call holder again. Favicon in this case. The context is going to be a bit simple. It's providing us with a function set image bitmap. So inside there we'll call the web history, get item at index position, and we'll pass in the favicon there to populate the favicon bitmap into our layout bitmap view. Okay, quick look at this. This looks all okay. So with so this is the back history. I do need to create a forward history. So if I go back to my project layout and I click on web history, basically what I'm going to do here is do a refactor, and it's going to be a copy. I would normally press F5 a lot faster, but to show you understanding what I'm doing here, I'm doing a refactor copy to make a copy of this particular adapter. And I'm going to change the name to forward. Forward history adapter, select OK. So there we have it there. It's Kotlin ID has, or the Android Studio ID has picked this up, so we can import this. Okay, so we just need to make a few minor changes to that. One is going to be the count. Now the count is going to be for the forward list. To get that, I just get the total size of a list and subtract the current index, which will give us that forward list. So we'll do that in the code there. And I'll just get some more real estate. So I'm just going to call in here web view. Again, copy back forward list size and subtract the index from that. It's going to give me the desired size of the forward list there. Okay, we just need to make a couple more changes in here, which is why I've created two adapters, just to keep the logic of this simple and not to complex the adapters too much. Okay, so it's going to be in the positions here for the web histories. So we've got the position here. I do need to add the index on top of that. So basically, if I call web history and get the current index and then add that to the position, and that's going to give the position of the current web page we're at. So I need to put a little increment just to add 1 to that. And I'm going to need to do the same down below here. So you can just copy and paste the contents inside these brackets here. And I'm just going to paste those inside there. And I do need to fix up one final item in get count here. So currently the get count is also including our current page in our list. So we don't want to do that. So I do need to decrement it by 1. Okay, just to exclude the current web page from our current size there. So we'll move across to Dialog Fragment there. Okay, we're going to need to do a little bit of work, so we'll start from the top and work the way down. So we no longer need this history here because we're passing the web view down. So I'm just going to create a new value. It's going to basically be a boolean and say, do we need to select back adapter? You're either going to want the back adapter or forward adapter. And we'll put a string for that. And I'll just put the text select back adapter for that. Okay, now we're also going to have to pop into our interface there we're going to change this function because we're not going to be using this web selected method anymore. That was for the previous list implementation. And so what I want this function here to do is just to return the web view from the main activity. So I'm just going to call it get web view. And it's going to return the object of a type web view. And we will need some brackets around that. And we'll still keep all this part here. This is important for setting up our interface. So all this needs to be set up here. But inside this history list, we no longer need this history list, but I'm just going to butcher it and just take some bits and pieces of it. So I'm going to change that history list to back adapter, just to represent whether or not represent which adapter we want to use. So change that to back adapter. And we're not getting a string array this time, we're going to be getting a Boolean. I cannot get a Boolean, but I can get a Boolean. Okay, and inside there it'll be our select a back adapter. Okay, and while I'm here, let's just tidy up this code before I add the RecyclerView Adapter. So we're not setting a list, so we can remove all this code here, can be gone. Okay, we're going to return basically AlertDialog builder creates a dialog, so we can just return that. And let's call return on that and delete all the lines below there, all this parts of the section here. Okay, so we've got some nice clean code to work with. The first step I want to do here is to create a RecyclerView object. So set a value for that. I'm just going to call this RecyclerView, and it'll be a RecyclerView object, and it's going to need the calling activity, and we can just call it activity for that. Okay, so we have that there now, and I've gone to delete too many brackets. Okay, so right, the next step down here is to select our layout views, and the layout view is going to be different depending on if we're using the back or the forward list there. So this is where our back adapter comes into play. So if the back adapter is true, I want some curly braces for this. If the back adapter is true, we'll create a layout, RecyclerView layout manager. We'll create a layout manager. So it's going to be a layout manager object. And in this case, we want a linear layout manager because our recycler views are lists, they're not grids. So in here, I do believe we need the context, the orientation, and the whether or not we want that layout reverse, which is a nice feature I'm going to take advantage of. So context is going to be the activity from the calling activity. The orientation, we'll call our linear layout manager again and just select orientation, which will be vertical. And from the reverse layout, do I want to reverse the layout to select that as true? Yes, I do, because I want the most recent items in our back history list showing up first, just to make it intuitive for the user. So I select true for that. Okay, the next step here is just to set up adapter. So we'll call our RecyclerView dot adapter in this case. And we created two of those, so in this case you've got a 50-50 chance of getting this right or wrong, but you want to select the back adapter. That's why we set up a Boolean for that. And that back adapter does take a constructor because we set that up, and that constructor is a constructor parameter object is a web view. Just passing web view there. And And to get that web view, we do need to call our interface. So if we call our web history, and we call the function inside our interface, which will be getWebView, which will get us a current active existing WebView object passed down to our adapter. Okay, that's fine for our forward adapter. Let's do the forward adapter. Else, we can just copy these two lines just to save time. So, see if that will work. Yeah. Okay, in this particular case, the layout manager, the only change we need to make is the layout. We're going to set that to false. We just want to keep the existing layout for the forward lists, again, to make it intuitive to the users. So it'll be a false. And for the adapter, we're going to use the forward adapter for that. And those are the only changes we need to make for the creation of our recycler view. Okay, for the last part in this, we need to add our recycler view we've just created to our dialog builder. And it's just a matter of, if we go underneath the alert dialog, call set view and pass in our recycler view. And those should be the only changes we need to make to our dialog fragment. Now we need to jump across into our main activity and implement this interface function here, and also call our select back adapters through the arguments where we decide which list to use, the forward list or the back list. So we'll move across to the main activity. Okay, and go to the top here. Okay, we're getting errors here because we've removed this web page selector function interface here. I'm just going to comment it out for the time being because we're not adding on-click functionality, unfortunately, to this recycler view. Half of you are already getting out the knives, thinking what you're going to do to me, but it will happen in the following tutorial because this tutorial is going on for way too long. Okay, so we'll just comment this out here. Okay, now I do need to implement the interface function we've just created. Implement members, it's the get web view. Okay, and this is going to be quite straightforward. I'm just going to actually just do this the Kotlin way, just for a simple return expression, and it'll just be a matter of returning our web view object there. Okay, so that's now been set up. We just need to do a few more bits to touch up. Okay, so in our get history dialog, we want to pass a boolean to decide which list to use. So we need to change this here. While I'm here, we will need to add another parameter inside this function. It's going to be a type of boolean, and I'll just call this select. I'll just call this back adapter. Is back adapter true or false? And this will be of type boolean. Okay, now I'm just going to change this to bundle put boolean. And I can get the string value from the dialog fragment. So if I call the dialog fragment object and select back adapter there. And it wants a value there. Sorry, I was must have zoned out there just for a second. That's the back adapter we have to pass there. Okay, that's fine for that. Now we just have to modify the two places where this get history dialog function gets called, just to add the correct boolean value, and we will know what those are because of the names of these particular functions, which are on click listeners. So one's the get back history. Do I want get back history? Yes, I do. Where's my cursor gone? So I'll set that to true because I do want the back history in this case. And it'll be the opposite, set this to false for the forward history. So we'll set this to false. Okay, those are the only changes we need to make. Next step forward is to actually just run this and see if we get this application working to what we expect. Okay, when I went to build this, to pick up a little error here, you will have to watch out for this. I've gone and used the wrong name. It's a web history item. It should be web item history. Boy, those are similar. It's a web item history. Now we'll go and run that. Okay, the application's now started up. Just to save time, I have done a bit of website navigation just to build up a history list. So you know, so I'm looking at the BBC Sport. So if I do a long click on the back button, and as you can see, we've got our recycler view being displayed here with the favicons on the left hand side of the web titles, giving us a little bit more, just making the list look a little bit nicer and demonstrating the use of the recycler view. Okay, so if I just go back a bit, navigate back, I might have to fast forward this. This browser's, my internet's maybe not the fastest. Okay, I just went back several times. Boy, the BBC website seems quite slow today. Anyway, if we just hold our finger down on the forward list, and we can see our forward lists showing us all the content there. So we've basically got the recycler view implemented and working on both the forward and the back lists. This tutorial's gone for a long time, so it's going to be the following tutorial where we implement a click listener where we can actually go to the web history items. Apologies about that one. Okay, the main work went inside our adapters, so let's step through these code changes just to reinforce the RecyclerView adapter. The rest of it is quite logical and quite straightforward to implement. Okay, so we've got the back history adapter here. I'm going to add some breakpoints here for when we create the view holder. We don't need to count, that's quite straightforward. When we bind the view holder, let's just put one for just a quick explanation of creating the view holder itself. Okay, let's run this code in debug mode and I will generate a history and then we'll step through just showing you what happens inside our adapter itself. Okay, I've started up the application, generated a bit of a history there. Let's do a long press on the back button. Okay, we've jumped inside our adapter here. The first thing we're doing is setting up, inflating our layout file that contains our favicon and our title. So we're setting up, I'm getting an inflator object first, then I'm inflating that actual layout, and then that layout is going to be passed into our view holder just to create our view holder. So we'll continue on. There's our view holder there, and basically we're just populating the members of the view holder with the appropriate views, one representing the title and the other one representing the favicon there. And as you can see, the population is happening, so we'll continue on. And once all that's happened, this is where the actual recycler view comes into action and makes its request for its views. So it's actually saying, right, give me some titles and give me some favicons to put into my lists, my recycler views, and this is where it's happening here. So if we go down there, and it's basically saying, right, I want a title, any title, and we're getting ours from the web history there to put into the view holder, and it's also saying the same for the favicon, the bitmap there, and we're getting all this information here from our web history, so we're populating it there. And if I just remove this breakpoint here and this breakpoint here, the onbind view holder is going to be called a number of times until it's satisfied that it's populated all of its rows, basically. In other words, the recycler view list is complete. So if we call continue, we'll see it's been called again and again, and it's finally stopped, but I do have a full list in front of me of the backlist of the web view history there. that concludes the Kotlin on Android RecyclerView tutorial. I think I've gone well over budget for my target time of between 12 to 15 minutes in this one, but there is a bit of a setup for a RecyclerView, especially when you're setting up the RecyclerView Adapter. And so if you wanted to get the code changes to these updates, they will be posted to the website down here, along with an accompanying video to show you how to do that using Android Studio. If you want help or support with any of my tutorials, I have set up inside the website here. You can book for my time and we can go through, I can give you training or help you through any of these tutorials here or assist you in your requests. So it's on a time basis of 30 minutes to an hour. When you click that, you pay in advance and there'll be a scheduling time, and so I put my time in advance of availability. And what will happen is I will set up a conference call where we'll do a face-to-face call. We can screen share and we can go through a lot of detail and information together at the same time. And that concludes this tutorial. Thank you for taking the time for watching this one, and if you haven't already and want to get notified of the following tutorials, click on that subscribe button. Bye for now.